Toastmasters and guests. Now is the time in the Toastmasters Conference and Communication Manual where I present my 10th and final speech, the Inspirational Speech. The trouble is, I have not felt inspirational for a while now. The last time I could feel myself filled with inspiration was on Election Day morning. Wearing my brand new But Like a Girl t-shirt and my Wonder Woman and Rosie the Riveter pins, waving my American flag with my daughter in her finest 4th of July ensemble, ready to elect our first female president. Later that night, as I saw the Electoral College have different ideas. This was me the next morning. Hit by the stages of grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression. Not exactly inspiration. How could this have happened? I kept thinking I couldn't get to acceptance. How could this have happened? How could it be that so many people not only didn't vote for the candidate that I preferred, but could vote for somebody who has attacked almost every kind of group and person I can think of? How can there be so many millions of people who didn't feel personally, indirectly, directly insulted in this way? I kept coming back to this poem that I learned as a girl from the Holocaust. First, I came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews. I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. For years, I would learn about the Holocaust from school and also from living in a town with a significant Jewish population and friends who had Holocaust survivors and things. But there was always a triumphant sense at the end of all of this tragedy that never again. We have learned our lesson. We will never allow this to happen again in a progressive, free Western society. And yet, during those months of the campaign, and in fact in the first week of the Trump presidency, it does seem to be happening again. Somebody tweeted, first they came for the Latinos, Muslims, women, gays, poor people, intellectuals, and scientists, and then it was Wednesday. I replied, next they came for the Native Americans, park rangers, journalists, immigrants, and refugees, and then it was Friday. Not exactly inspiration. And yet somehow, I still couldn't get to acceptance. In that darkness of the depression and anger and bargaining and denial, I suddenly felt the smallest flicker of hope beginning to light up that darkness. And it wasn't the usual inspiration that I would expect from a beautiful sunset on a beach or a glorious symphony or a baby making friends with a puppy. It was coming from the most unlikely sources. On Inauguration Day weekend, the Department of the Interior, which oversees all the national parks and certain other agencies, was gagged by the new White House because the National Park Service had retweeted, not even tweeted, retweeted aerial photos of the mall showing the Inauguration Day crowd at President Trump's inauguration and compared to President Obama's, clearly in defiance of his claims that his crowd was the largest ever. In the midst of this gag order, several national park Twitter accounts suddenly began tweeting facts about climate change, about the Japanese internment that happened on their lands, and defiance from the most unlikely sources. First, they came from the scientists, and the National Park Service said, LOL, no, and went rogue. They were all like, I was not expecting the park rangers to lead the resistance. Not with token, not this time. I prepared me for this. But cool! I've never been one for political protests. I've covered them as a journalist, and I'm sorry to say they usually came across as fairly fruitless. Now, of thousands of my closest friends felt inspired to join the Women's March. I got to the march in Seattle with my children in our ensembles and funny hats, keen to join the movement. There were so many people that we could not even begin to march for over an hour. My son started crying. We were hungry. We were picky. I thought about leaving. And suddenly, two bald eagles started to circle the crowd above us. A sign. We looked up, raptured, and just felt like we were all in this together. This is what democracy looks like, and we continued the march in solidarity with tens of thousands of our closest friends and our silly friends. I now find myself with my senators and representatives' phone numbers saved on my phone. I barely knew who they were before, and now I and so many other people are calling them, following them on Twitter, following them on Facebook, voicing our concerns and opinions. Something that we should have been doing all along and never thought to do before. Only after all those years of studying the Holocaust do I now finally understand that things can go very wrong in a progressive society. But it's not that we can say, I would have done something differently, I wouldn't have let this happen. Now we can say, I'm here now, this is the time for me to do something about it. Meryl Streep, someone who has been attacked by President Trump as overrated, says if we live through this precarious moment, we will have much to thank this President Trump, because he has woken us up to how fragile freedom really is. Garry Kasparov, a world chess champion and Russian dissident, so someone who clearly knows about strategy and political aggression, has added that U.S. democracy will survive Trump and come out stronger for the test, because Americans are rediscovering what they took for granted for so long. There are many memes and lists going around on the internet now to inspire you. There's one that I find particularly helpful. It looks like Trump is actually making America great again. Just look at the progress made since his election. We now have unprecedented levels of ongoing civic engagement. Millions of Americans now know who their representatives are calling them, they know how checks and balances work, and they know exactly what to say in order to be effective. The Postal Service suddenly flush with cash. People are buying stamps for their postcard and letter writing campaigns. Everyone is now familiar with 20th century European history and is picking up classic literature again, including George Orwell's 1984, which has spiked 10,000% in sales since the election. Marginalized groups are experiencing a surge in white allies. White people have realized that racism is not dead, and I would add to that misogyny as well. Comedy shows have entered the golden age, and everyone is a comedian, including even the International Space Station. Donald Trump tweeted, "We must keep evil out of our country." The International Space Station's response, "We have space for you up here. Come join us." Donations to Planned Parenthood and the ACLU have skyrocketed. Mike Pence has donated millions of dollars to Planned Parenthood as a part of our goal, writing his name in as the donor. Travel ban protesters have contributed millions of dollars to the ACLU, enabling them to hire hundreds of attorneys. Attorneys are now heroes. Speaking of my personal heroes, journalists. We have now seen, after all these years, a surge of people wanting to pay for music, pay for newspaper magazine subscriptions. There's a hashtag called Press that I'm involved with that celebrates this. Search for actual facts. And now, more than any other time in history, everyone believes that anyone can be president. Seriously, anyone. A whole lot of women have woken up and said, I could do that. I'm at least as qualified as that. I might as well run. That's amazing. And it's about time. Anne Frank, someone who has inspired me, wrote many things in her diary when she was living. And one thing that I feel resonates with us today is how wonderful is it that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. Now is the time to speak up and speak out. Now is the time to talk the talk, and walk the walk, and march the march, and make the calls. Now is the time to donate and volunteer for the causes you believe in, especially if they're under attack. Now is the time to support candidates for office who will fight for your values, or to run for office yourself. If not now, when? When I think about Anne Frank, and when we think about all the people who inspire us, they are all very different. They have different challenges, different walks of life. What they have in common is hope and hard work. In the darkest of times, when all the odds are against them, they cling to hope and they keep working hard, even when it would be easier to give up or do something else. Now is the time to be like them. Now is the time to remember what Dr. King said. The time is always right to do what is right. Now is the time to stop despairing, to start doing something every single day, to start improving the world.